What's up everyone, welcome back to the SWL channel. So I am reducing the amount of content that I'm purely producing to 4 days a week, but I'm going to try to do a little bit of a couple reaction videos a week maybe. Kind of more like a response, not really a reaction. So this first video that I'm going to do is called The Downfall of Survivio Battle Royale, which I think is a really complicated name. It could have just been the downfall of Surviv, but it's by Joweek here. Link to the video and Joweek will be down in the description below. Let's get right into it. I have watched this before, but I'll be telling you guys what I think about it and kind of like adding on to a little bit of what he's talking about.
So I made the mistake of playing Survive.io almost exclusively for the past 2 years, and now I'm getting asked to play the game on a daily basis.
Stop it.
However, this is completely normal.
Especially streamers who like stream one time a day and then they'll be asked like afterwards, hey, can you go live? I want to play with you kind of thing. It's really annoying. Just don't do it.
I mean, if you look at Farretto's channel, there are still hundreds of people having a mental breakdown in the comments section. Now the reason I'm bringing this up now is because I want to talk about why I got into Survive.io, why it stuck with me for so long, and why I finally quit the game. But to do this, we have to go back in time, back to the early stages of Survive.io Battle
By the way, this video is very well edited. I'm really impressed by his editing skills.
Royale. The year is 2017, and the IO game category consists of games such as Deep.io, Mope.io, Slither.io, etc. Most of the games in the IO genre were starting to die up until on October 11th, 2017, Survive.io
That's not really true. I think IO games were doing as good as ever, but it's not really that important.
was released to the public. Obviously, the game was not very well known until about February of 2018, which is when it finally started to gain some traction. Even bigger YouTubers such as
That's actually not really true either. I think late 2017 was when big YouTubers started popping off.
Star123 and Jerome ASF were playing the game. Over the next 6 months, the game kept growing and growing until finally in August, the game hit its largest peak. While the game wasn't extremely popular, the game still had thousands of people. So what did Survive.io do that started to gain so much attention? The answer is simple. Survive.io is purely a game based off of PUBG, but created so that people with a bad computer could play. You could also play it at school with your friends.
I think this is one of the main reasons why it grew in popularity was because people were playing with each other at school, and so they were able to play as a squad, and then whenever they got home they'd play sometimes by themselves. So I think if you see the spikes in the graphs, they do well during school time and not so well during the summer, which is kind of the opposite of what you'd expect because people have a bunch of free time during the summer.
Also, what I really like about Survivio is the fact that it only takes a few seconds to join a game. This allows for a more enjoyable experience, because you're constantly playing the game. When Justin and Nick owned the game, they ran it on really powerful servers, making the game really smooth, even on a Chromebook. Now that Kong owns the game, they run Surviv on really laggy servers, which makes
So this is actually not true at all, or at least not that I'm aware of. I don't believe the servers changed as much as just the code became poorly maintained, and it gets to the point where once the game becomes too big, in terms of like size of the files, it has difficulty going from servers to players regardless of how good their computers are and regardless of how good the servers are. So I don't think it's the fact that there's poor servers anymore. I think it's that if you look through the code, there's a bunch of unoptimized files. There's like 30 or so different varieties of their coding software for ads that they just didn't delete, or I guess couldn't figure out which parts to delete. So like 25% at least of the game is just unused or poorly optimized stuff. When you think about how much is going back and forth between traffic, if you can save 25%, that'd be considerably fast. Because I started to experience lag before a lot of other people started experiencing lag because my CPU wasn't super good. But it's slowly, like over time, it phased in, people getting laggier and laggier with every update, which they didn't change servers every update, and that would explain why people started lagging at different times instead of all at once with one big server, which also kind of makes me think that it's not really necessarily Chrome either, which I know people have been blaming it on Chrome, or at least Kongregate has been blaming it on Chrome, but I think it's more eventually stuff lags when you get the file big enough and unoptimized enough. And so I think Chrome might have had an influence where it's using some of your CPU, some of your space on your computer, and it's making it where that you could handle even less. But I don't think Chrome is really a significant thing to blame on this.
Unless you have a top-notch PC and fast Wi-Fi. The only thing affecting this are headshots. Forget everything people said about skill, because critical hits require 99.99% luck. Basically, you can have the best armor in the game and still have a high chance of getting two-shot by an MP220.
I agree to this that it does impact the game, but I don't think it's particularly negative for the game, to be honest. I'll go over it now since I think this game would be I think being too skill based is not a good thing, because importantly enough, to get a bad player to keep playing the game, you have to give them a chance of winning. So either you put in more bad people, which is what a lot of games do with matchmaking, where that if you're a pro player, you're going to be playing against other pro and top players, and if you're a bad player, you're going to be playing against a bunch of other bots. Surviv doesn't do that because it can't, two, it just doesn't have the player base. So they have to put everybody together. So by giving you a chance to crit a good player or just a better player and kill them, then it keeps a player wanting to keep playing because they actually beat somebody who was good.
You have reached a point where you have two choices. The first choice is to join a Discord server where you could possibly become exceedingly relevant for having a good sense of humor, being decent at the game, and having popular friends. The second choice is to remain in larger servers such as the Survivio main and probably not gain as many friends. However, if you pick the first option, you will soon realize there's a price you have to pay. Raids and toxicity was a huge issue and often scared lots of people away from the pro community. The Survivio main Discord mod, John, often justified huge ban waves, which meant that players associated with toxic clans were immediately banned from the Survivio main. This started a big controversy which made the pro community strongly dislike the Survivio main community.
I don't think this is true. I think a lot of people just disliked certain aspects of the community. I don't think the Surviv main is really an issue. It's just the people inside of it and the hive mind that it's become, curated by a couple, I don't want to say bad apples because I think they think they're right, but people like John and stuff who just poison the minds of the normal people into thinking that all competitive servers are bad. Like, I remember going in there once with an alt. I ended up getting banned pretty quickly, but I asked like why people don't like competitive scene, and people said, well, because it's toxic. There were just all a bunch of raiders and stuff, and I said, okay, so I assume you've experienced this before, and all of them were just like, no, but like all my friends have been in toxic servers and they've never liked it, kind of thing. But like, if everybody's quote friends were a part of a toxic server, but nobody's actually been in a toxic server, and it's just people kind of scaring people off for no reason, then there's not really a valid reason for somebody to actually dislike the competitive scene without having a negative experience in the competitive scene themselves. They're just so gullible by the mods into thinking that whatever the mods think is bad is actually bad, and that's really poor.
Despite these problems, Survivio was fun for me. I had a really good time with it. Most of the issues weren't even entirely noticeable for me until I became more known in the pro community. In early December of 2019, Justin and Nick addressed that they are going to be taking a break from the development of Survivio and that they would be giving Kongregate the responsibilities. Of course, no one really knew what this meant and no one really knew what it would look like. In fact, most of the people were excited because they didn't feel like Justin and Nick did a good job with the game.
I would hesitate to say that people were excited. I think they were optimistic that things would get better. I know a lot of people were upset with the rate, including me, were upset with the rate of development for Surviv, and we felt like Nick and Justin weren't updating fast enough and were kind of taking it as like a part-time job when they were making the money of a full-time job. But I would be hesitant to say that people were excited that it was being handed over.
Game. And let me tell you, we were about to experience the near death of Survive.io.
It's still dying.
I don't think I need to go deep into detail about why Kongregate affected the game so much. In fact, some of it wasn't even Kongregate's fault. Why many useless things such as flasks, growlers, and boring modes were being added, this was not the main cause of the downfall of Survivio. And this is when the hacker epidemic comes into play. Ice Hacks, a company with the main goal of destroying Survivio.
The main goal wasn't to kill Surviv. The main goal was to make cheats. After that, they realized that by making cheats, they were able to benefit their own company that they were starting. So I think it's disingenuous to say that their main goal was to destroy SW or destroy Surviv.
So that their new game Victor.io could do well started to become such a large problem in early 2020. Now obviously, Kongregate at one point did make an effort to permanently remove hackers. For the first time in months, an anti-cheat was finally released. Many players were excited, and the game felt fun again. Well, that only lasted a few hours. After Ice Hacks was released again, it felt like Kongregate had completely given up. Hackers remained, and while the game caused many problems for people trying to play the game, the lack of progression also urged players to quit. The game was just so plain, and nothing new was being added.
I don't think the plainness is that big of an issue. I mean, we dealt with the main modes of Surviv the majority of the time that Nick and Justin were here, bar a few times when there was a normal, like a LTM, but I'd say like 80% of the time was just normal Surviv, and I don't think that was a problem. I think the problem became when there was hackers and when there was major cheating, and when it was no longer fun to play it in a competitive space because all these people had an unfair advantage just by cheating, kind of thing.
It's 2020, and many of us have been playing the game for quite a while now.
I don't think that's valid. I think when you own a game, the responsibility of everything surrounding the game is your problem. But hackers, that's something that you should be responsible for fixing. Community, that's your job to uphold the community. If that's placing better people in moderator positions and placing good people in the community management position, that's your responsibility. Social media marketing, that's your responsibility. The developing of the game is your responsibility. Lag is your responsibility. I don't think saying that everything's Kongregate's fault. That's everything roots down to Kongregate's fault. It's not fair to blame it on anybody else besides Kongregate. It's their responsibility to get the game. If they need to sue Ice Hacks, sue Ice Hacks. It's whatever you gotta do to make your game successful. That's how business works. Either you're the top and you're striving or you're not.
So the game was bound to die anyway. For the past month now, I have mentioned that I quit Survivio. Although that's not the news most of you guys want to hear, I hope you now understand why I did it. It's just not something that I have fun with anymore. Either way, I want to give a big thanks to Strawberry Donut for helping me with the script, and also to my donators for
Strawberry messed up a lot of the facts, so don't ask Strawberry to help with your videos, KegW.
voluntarily throwing money at me.
Alright, so with that, that's going to be the end of this video. I told you that this is going to be a little bit less, but I think this would be a more sustainable method. Go check out Joweek. He's making some other stuff now that's not Surviv related. Like, I know he was doing Minecraft for a while. He's a good editor. Videos are entertaining. 2.3k subscribers. While you guys are here, I'd appreciate if you guys sub to me and maybe checked out my Twitch. I'll be streaming finally now that I got my computer back. The reason why I wasn't uploading videos was because my computer was broken. So I wasn't able to do thumbnails. I was able to edit, but I wasn't able to do thumbnails. And I just needed a little bit of a break, to be honest. So I've got a backlog of videos now. Got videos for like the next 4 or 5 weeks besides Survival Alert and Best of Twitch. So I'll see you guys tomorrow, Thursday.